This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining the City of Kingston Historic Landmarks Preservation Commission at our monthly meeting. Today is November 5th, 2020. My name is Suzanne Cahill. I'm the Planning Director and the organizer for our virtual meeting. Before we begin our meeting, we would like to go over a few meeting guidelines to help navigate the system as efficiently and respectfully as possible. We ask that members of the public and the press remain muted and off camera for the length of the meeting. As the organizer, I reserve the right to mute anyone who unmutes themselves. Commission members and city staff will control their own mute button. Good practice would be to mute yourself if you are not speaking to avoid background noise and feedback. If a commissioner or staff wishes to speak, they will raise their hands. The chairperson will call on them before they speak by stating their name clearly for our audio listeners and transcript recording. All of our meetings are recorded. Both video and written transcriptions will be made available to the public on the city website at a later date. In lieu of public speaking during the monthly meeting, we requested all comment to be received by 2 p.m. on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020. No comment has been received. All meeting materials, applications, supporting documentations may be found on the city website by going to www.kingston-ny.gov, and on the homepage, scroll down to the bottom under meetings where you see Historic Landmark Preservation Commission listed. Click the link for the agenda and you will find a universal hyperlink for all information. If at any time you have an audio issue, please send a text message to the following number, 845-443-0416. I will repeat that number again, but be aware that phone calls will not be answered during the meeting. The number again to text is 845-443-0416. As the organizer for today's meeting, I reserve the right to lock and pause the meeting to eject anyone who has behaved inappropriately or to enter into attorney-client conference if needed. The Commission wishes to thank you for your continued patience during this unusual and difficult time, and on their behalf, we wish you and your family good health. And I now turn the floor over to Chairman Mark Grumblatt to call the meeting officially to order at 6:35 p.m.
Thank you, Sue. All right. The first order of business, well, first we should introduce ourselves. I'm Mark Grumblatt. I'm the chair of the commission. I'll ask each of you in turn to introduce yourselves. I'll call, let's see, on my screen, the easiest is Kevin McAvoy.
Yeah, I'm Kevin McAvoy. I'm a commissioner on this board, yes.
Peter DeMuth.
Hi, I'm Peter DeMuth, Commissioner.
Robert Tonner, Commissioner.
Mark,
Hayes, can you hear me?
Barely. I'm Hayes Clement. I'm a commissioner.
Andrea Putes.
Andrea Putes, and I'm the architect for the commission.
All right. First order of business is our minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Are there any corrections or additions that commissioners would like to make to the minutes of our October 1 meeting? Seeing none, I'll call the roll on, I'll entertain a motion to approve as submitted. Would someone
Hayes
like
Clement, motion.
I need a second. Robert, I believe you had your hand up first. Please unmute.
Yes, second. Sorry.
Thank you, Robert. All right, I'll call the roll on approval of last month's minutes. Kevin?
Aye.
Hi.
Sorry.
Mark, you need to lean into your mic a little
It's
more.
happened again. All right,
Yeah.
Robert?
Aye.
Hayes?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Also vote in the affirmative. They are approved. Thank you. Next, we move on to a public hearing. Is anyone present at the meeting here to address the commission on our public hearing regarding 26 Franklin Street and 190 South Wall Street? This is the nomination of the AME Zion Church and its affiliated cemetery to state and national historic registry. Is anyone who is not a member of the commission here to discuss that with us? If so, please unmute yourself and let us know.
No?
All right, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
So, thank you, Hayes. Do I have a second to Hayes's motion?
Andrea Pute, second.
Thank you. I'll call the roll on the motion. Kevin?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Hayes?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
I also vote in favor. So I'd ask at this time that Kevin McAvoy address us about the application. He's been involved in its creation, and you're our local expert for the evening on this nomination. So Kevin?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I got involved with this project in 2010, 2011, which time, well, I'm still on the board of the Kingston Land Trust, and Kingston Land Trust had helped form an African-American history committee at that time. We invited Bill Krattinger, who some of you may know from SHPO, down to Kingston to look at the Pine Street African Burial Ground, AME Zion Church, and the Mount Zion Cemetery. And we proposed a multiple resource area National Historic Register nomination at that time. We ran into several problems with this. One was the Pine Street foreclosure proceeding, which wasn't resolved until Kingston Land Trust eventually purchased the property from the lender in a short sale in 2019. So that was out. The AME Zion, they gave us a lot of information and we started putting it together. They didn't give us as much information as what Maisha Tyler has put in this nomination, but they did give us a lot of information. And then I separately researched at the county clerk's office, got additional information. But we needed permission from their main office in Charlotte, according to Pastor Lucille, who's no longer around. She was a visiting pastor. And she had told us, you got to talk to somebody in Charlotte, North Carolina on this. I don't have authority. So we didn't proceed with that. Now that left us with Mount Zion. And what we did was we concentrated on a rededication of the Mount Zion Cemetery in 2011, June 4th or 5th of 2011. Some of you may recall that or had attended that. We also ran into a further problem on Mount Zion, and that had to do with the title. And we couldn't determine the records that the parcel viewer had I pulled that deed, and that was also in the Swain report, which was used as the basis for the Historic Landmarks Preservation Commission nomination in 1987 for the cemetery, the local designation. That had an error that was carried over to the county or vice versa, I don't know which. But it's a deed that's from Huftaling to the trustees of the African Burial Ground. And if you read it, it clearly refers to Pine Street and St. James and Fair Street and that whole area. Huftaling is a dead giveaway. Remember the old Huftaling Cemetery where the medical center is. So that clearly was wrong. That left us with a dilemma. Now we've disproved what's the known facts. Now what do we do? So we spent countless hours up at the county looking for deeds from to the AME Zions, in which case we put together a history of their real estate transactions. where they were, where the Sunoco station is, then further down the block where they are now. And then eventually we found a deed from Gilead Smith, who was a big property owner all over Midtown and Wilbur and Golden Hill, Greenkill, the whole area. And he deeded a group of parcels to the city of Kingston in 1858. And included was a property on the old 12 Skill Wilbur Road. And that was Mount Zion Cemetery. We were able to determine that. That deed has other significance, which I don't know we'd want to cover in any great detail here, but he deeded property and roadways on his, for street openings and what have you in the same deed, which could come up somewhere else some other time. So where that left us was, now we have the village of Kingston owning this property. This is pre-city. This was 1858. Now, how did the Mount Zion Cemetery get involved? I mean, the AME Zion Church get involved with the Mount Zion Cemetery, other than, they had a connection in the community. So Rebecca Martin went to the city clerk's office at that point, and I think they went up in the tower, pulled some old dusty boxes out, and in there they found Common Council minutes from 1891, which authorized transfer from the now city of Kingston to the cemetery trustees. And in the same batch of documents, there was also an incorporation certificate for the Mount Zion Cemetery Association, which was connected to the cemetery. So we have a lot of documentation on this. Now, where that leaves us on the NHR nomination is they did a very thorough job on the church, but they're missing a lot of the details on Mount Zion. And one of the key details, which I researched extensively in Louisiana, was the history of the U.S. CT 20th Regiment. They were the occupying force in New Orleans in 1864 and 1865. And some of that research was not done here. It was done in Louisiana at the Williams Research Center on Charter Street. And then we did site visits to where they were stationed, which was now in Jefferson Parish, near Metairie. And then we went over the other side to the Chalmette battlefield, where there's a national cemetery, and there's a bunch of our people from up here that were in that regiment that are buried there in Chalmette. And Barbara and I cross-referenced. We had a muster roll for the regiment, and we had a list from the burials from the National Park Service, who administers the site. And we went running back and forth, like, hey, we got Sergeant Beekman over here. Well, there's Captain Corporal Johnson over there. Wait, we had to do this in 2 hours. It was December, it was getting dark, and they closed the cemetery. And I think we were the first people ever to do this, and probably the only people since. So we have a ton of stuff here. The question is, how do we get this into the nomination? So I made a list, and of this, what page on Section 8 some of this material would go in. I don't know if people want me to. I can write this up as a written comment if you want me to go that route, or we can just let this go if you're comfortable with it. So I'd like to get feedback from everybody.
I'm not a commissioner, but my thought would be, Kevin, that yes, I mean, if it's important information that should be listed in the nomination, if you could write it up in a listing and we would submit that as part of our recommendation back to the state, I think that is very important to include and incorporate. And we would ask that the state do that in both the state and national nomination forms.
Okay, well, except what we have on the church, I think Bill Rhodes did a write-up, and he went into a bit more architectural detail on the church itself, on the Romanesque windows in the front, in particular, in addition to Gothic. He noted that in depth. It's in his book. You can read the book, and it tells you what it is. There's also a rededication program from 1930 that I have. They didn't seem to give that to Maisha when she was doing this. And there was also a letter from there was a Pastor Smith in the 1880s and there was a letter from one of his relatives trying to find out where he was buried. The nomination states that he was buried in the Mount Zion, but there's no documentation for this that we could find.
Okay.
So that's an interesting point, but I don't know we want to make a big deal about it. On the cemetery, we do have considerable information, as I already outlined. And it looks to me from the bibliography where Maisha went with this was that she got a lot of the information from a website that we had put up at Kingston Land Trust in 2010 that's still out there. You can access it, but it's not, it didn't have a lot of, it only had a few documents, and most of them pertain to the Pine Street burial ground, not to Mount Zion. So yeah, that's why she's missing stuff. She just relied on that. And yeah, I have the files. So I'll document that and reference all of that for everyone. And let me see if there's anything else on this. I also have the blue forms, which aren't noted in there. I don't know why, but they're not.
I missed that. That's a good point.
Yeah.
That should be included.
Yeah, that definitely. Okay.
Okay, so I think that pretty much covers it. I also have the landmark designation if we don't have that handy. I think that would have been in the box of files that came up from building safety, but that's where it came from. And Ed had it.
Julie, were you able to find that anything in the landmarks existing files for the local designation on the cemetery?
I didn't look.
No, don't worry, I have it. Ed gave me all his files on this. So I think we're pretty good on it.
You guys froze. I don't.
Okay. So Kevin, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not a commissioner. I'm going to rely maybe Mark or on one of the other commissioners to make the motion, but my recommendation would be to request Kevin to draft up the report, and we incorporate that into our comment back to, I mean, everything that Kevin has said, I think is important, and he's brought up some critical points about like the blue forms and some of the listings and even the local designation that should be included as well as maybe some of the letters that he mentioned are missing. And that we submit that to the state. We are under a deadline, Kevin, to get this.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, all right.
And we can always supplement if we uncover anything important that's new. So I would urge you to go ahead and draft and post.
Did I contact Kathy Howe? She's the SHPO rep that was doing this. I think I mentioned in an email earlier today to Suzanne and Julie that I've worked with her before.
Yes.
On documentation that I've had on other nominations elsewhere in the state.
Okay.
All right. Are there any questions from commission members for Kevin? Everyone familiar with the geographic reach of the very common for regiments?
Mark, you're cutting in and out. You're going to have to really get closer into your microphone.
Straight into it. Okay. Is this any better?
It's much better.
Okay, I'll lean in. So it was typical in the Civil War for regiments to be drawn from specific regions. And the one Kevin is discussing was specifically from Ulster County. There's quite a bit of local documentation scattered around the county. I'm familiar. We've uncovered extra here. And I thank you, Kevin, for everything that you have done to dig in to both of these properties. I will move that we ask Kevin to draft his research into supporting documentation. This body formally support the nomination of both 26 Franklin Street and 190 South Wall Street to the state. Do I have a second?
Hayes Clement, second.
Thank you, Hayes. I will call the roll. Kevin?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Hayes?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
I also vote in the affirmative. Thank you.
Okay. Motion carries. Thank you, Kevin, for your work.
Very much so. I love this kind of detail, and I think that it will strengthen our application. Next order of business is 272 Wall Street. Is anyone here to address that application? Mr. Santoir, is that correct?
So everybody, George Santoir from Aerosmith Development here for AT&T.
Right, hi. Please explain the application for the commission and for those listening.
Sure. So the project is to provide better coverage to that whole Stockade district in Kingston. So it's really kind of like the whole west side of Kingston. And the project consists of 8 antennas going inside of the old Dutch church in the steeple, 4 of them at 90 feet, the other 4 at 97. So they're placed behind the wooden louvers in the steeple. And then there's some associated supporting equipment. And then the rest of the equipment's all in the basement. And the only thing that's visible exterior outside of the steeple and the church's buildings is the backup generator outside, which we've landscaped. We planned to landscape with some shrubbery to disguise it a little so it's not really too visible from the road. The photo simulations came out really good, and that generator is also usable by the old Dutch church. So it's kind of like a shared agreement between AT&T and the church. So if they need to use it for whatever reason, if the power were to go out, they can also use it besides just AT&T using it.
It's located around near the property line with Ulster Savings Bank, am I correct?
I think it's in, you mean the generator itself?
The generator.
Yeah, it's in the church building kind of makes like an L shape, so it's on the inside of the L. So it's really basically as far back from the roads, Fair Street and Main Street that it could be.
Right.
Questions from commissioners?
Just a couple of notes.
It's on the east side. It's not by Ulster Savings.
It's on the Fair Street side, Mark.
Right.
Oh, further over. Okay.
Yeah,
It's tucked
it's
into
not near the cemetery.
their corner. This has gotten approval by the planning board and also by Heritage Area Commission already. As a point of discussion, one comment with the planning board that was also carried through by the Heritage Commission is just to increase the landscaping around the generator to create a solid row of landscape.
So a single row of solid shrubbery is the.
Right, the corner was exposed, so we just asked that to be connected together, and they consented to that.
But it's important to note, I think the antennas on the structure are not visible from the street.
Yeah. They're all interior, all the wiring, everything is interior.
Right. First order of business on this application is a motion for that it be.
This is an
This is
unlisted,
an unlisted, not a type 2.
correct.
Right. So this, that we acknowledge this is an unlisted action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. I'll
So moved. Hayes Clement.
have a second.
Mark, can you repeat your motion, please, and lean in?
I'll lean in and repeat myself, that we are declaring this application as an unlisted action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Hayes seconded.
Well, and
I
that.
made the motion.
Okay, do you want to also, you don't have to declare, you can just say it's an unlisted action and that it is a negative, and declare a negative declaration of environmental significance, all in one motion.
We need to do two. Fine, then I will amend the motion to add the provision that it's we are giving it a negative declaration of environmental significance. All right, everyone understand what our motion is? Hayes, are you in agreement with the amendment?
So moved. Yeah.
Do I have a second to the motion as amended?
Here.
Thank you, Robert. I'll call the roll. Kevin?
Aye.
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Hayes?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
I also vote affirmative. All right. 272. Let's call this up. Open up. There we go. All right. I'm sorry. Here we are. All right. I move that the commissioners present find as fact that the proposed installation of antennae along with supporting infrastructure and landscape screening at 272 Wall Street in the Stockade Historic District by the applicant Aerosmith Development and owner Renee S. House, if done according to the plans reviewed at this meeting and according to procedures stipulated in section 405-64 of the City of Kingston's Administrative Code, is compatible with the historic character of the building and the district for the following reasons. That the proposed work is to take place at the Dutch Reformed Church, also known as Old Dutch Church, a limestone trimmed bluestone structure of classical English Renaissance style with American Georgian characteristics, and a Gothic proportioned steeple designed by the celebrated 19th century architect Menard Lefebvre, built between 1850 and 1852, home to one of the oldest continuously existing congregations in the country, first organized in 1659. The building is the third church to be erected on the property, not counting those across Main Street. First, a wooden building erected in 1661 on the southwest corner of the churchyard was burned in 1663 during the massacre of the Second Esopus War. The second was a stone building erected in 1679 and also burned by the British in 1777, of which only the walls remained and which were incorporated into the present main structure, which has since sustained few reservations, save those brought on by the collapse of Lefebvre's ambitious original 274-foot steeple on Christmas Eve, 1853. The steeple, rebuilt in 1861 by the design of architect Edward Brink to 225 feet, houses a church bell cast in the Netherlands in 1794, made to replace the one burned by the British. Noteworthy too, within the original part of the church is stained glass by Louis Comfort Tiffany and an extensive MP Muller pipe organ. Further, that the proposed work will involve AT&T installing 8 panel antennas mounted entirely inside the church's steeple at a center line of 90 feet above ground level and 97 feet above ground level, facing outwards through existing wooden louvers, 20 remote radio heads mounted at the same center lines inside the steeple, a 10-foot by 20-foot area within the basement for the equipment cabinets, and a backup generator within a 9-foot by 12-foot on-grade concrete pad outside behind the church, camouflaged by landscape. That this work will cause a material change to the external appearance of the property, that the renovations will not detract from the character of the historic district or the building, that any changes or additions to the plans and or work specifically described and outlined in the submitted application will be subject to further review by our commission prior to additional work being carried out, that this commission's approval does not obviate the need for a building permit from the City of Kingston's Building Safety Division or any other required approvals from relevant coordinating agencies. Based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that on the 5th day of November 2020, this commission grant a preservation notice of action to the above referenced applicant for the work as described herein, and in its application to the commission, such notice to be subject to the conditions contained in the foregoing motion. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Robert. All right, I'll call the roll. Kevin?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Hayes?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
I also vote in favor.
Okay.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Santoir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Next order of business is 52 Main Street. A sign to be placed on the building, outside the building. Is someone here to address that application?
Yes, hi, I'm Arthur Hinton.
If you could
Hello?
explain. Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, I do.
Great.
Can you just state your name again, sir?
Yes, it's Arthur Hinton.
Thank you.
The sign for the commission.
The sign is gonna, there already is an existing post where Allstate Insurance has a sign, and my sign will be below it. In the past, there was an existing sign there.
Has everyone had a chance to take a look at the proposal? Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? Hearing none. Anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Hinden?
No,
Anyone else have on that application?
Mark, you have to lean in.
Anyone else here on that application? All right. All right, then I will move that the commissioners present find as fact that the proposed sign at,
Seeker? Mark
can I be heard?
Seeker, the environmental.
Thank you for the reminder. All right. First order of business on this is to declare it a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Do I have a motion to that effect?
Motion.
Thank you, Kevin. And a second? Hayes? Okay, thank you, Hayes, for the second. I'll call the roll on the seeker motion. Kevin?
Aye.
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Hayes?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
I also vote in the affirmative. All right, then I now move that the commissioners find as fact that the proposed sign at 52 Wall Street in the Stockade Historic District by applicant Arthur Higdon and owner Old Dutch Church, if done according to the plans reviewed at this meeting and according to the procedures stipulated in section 405-64 of the City of Kingston's Administrative Code, is compatible with the historic character of the building and the district.
Mark, you need to lean in.
This seems to be a continuing issue. Thank you. That the proposed sign will involve one double-sided 18-inch by 48-inch metal on fiberboard sign mounted onto existing posts parallel to an existing sign. That this work will cause a material change to the external appearance of the property, that the signage will not detract from the character or of the historic district or building, that any changes or additions to the plans or signage specifically described and outlined in the submitted application will be subject to further review by our commission prior to additional work being carried out. That this commission's approval does not obviate the need for a building permit from the City of Kingston's Building Safety Division or any other required approvals from relevant coordinating agencies. Based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that on the 5th day of November 2020, this commission grant a preservation notice of action to the above referenced applicant for the work as described herein and in its application to our commission, such notice to be subject to the conditions contained in the foregoing motion. Now, do I have a second?
Hayes Clement, second.
You, Hayes. I will call. Right, Kevin?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Hayes?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Also vote in the affirmative.
Great.
Thank you,
Motion
Mr. Hindley.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hey,
Bye-bye.
Mark and Sue, real
Aye.
quick. I have to recuse myself for the next two projects since my office is representing the two next.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. She should mute. Okay.
Yep.
Great. All right, next up, 39 Broadway. I see Scott and Mr. Sasso. Are you here on that application?
Yes, everybody.
Please describe it for the commission.
Sure. So we're moving into the space to do a full build out of a Mercantile cafe, partial general store that should be serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So we have 3 services. The cuisine will be somewhat Americana. I think we're in the ballpark of 40 seats, 40 to 45 seats, and couldn't be more excited to bring another restaurant down to that area. We do plan on kind of keeping the tone of Skilly Pot, the previous tenant in there, as far as decor goes, and most likely even leave up the sign, just to kind of like have a little bit of that element play into what we're doing going forward with like an old-fashioned style space.
All right. Scott, do you want to get into the architectural detail?
Sure. For this commission's review, The only exterior change that we're proposing is to restore the original transom windows in the facade, and that's depicted in the application that you have before you. The applicant has gone before the planning board, obtained approval, also gone before HAC. Anthony will need to come back around for signage, and we all know that. But right now, the scope of the request is limited to the restoration, recreation of the original transom windows as depicted.
Are the new lighting fixtures also external, or are they changed already there?
Yes, forgive me. Yes, there are lighting fixtures depicted in the package as well.
Does any member of the commission have questions for Mr. Dutton?
I think it looks great.
Yeah, I have to say the same thing. It looks wonderful. Good luck.
This is Julie Edelson Safford. Did you guys get the last picture of the building that I sent? Because today when I sent it to the commission, I noticed there was a strange format. Did you see that picture that I sent you guys?
I did.
John and Anthony.
Yeah, it was a HEITL or something. It's an Apple format, that one.
Did you see it? It was the corner shot.
Yeah.
The one from below on the hill?
It actually shows the entire building from the corner, so you could see both sides very well in it.
No,
I wanted to send it to you. I did. Andy has it because I sent it to the commission.
I can send it to Scott.
Yeah.
Send it to both of them because I think it's really important that you guys see that one image.
It looks like off to going up a Beale Street that there's a larger opening than exists today.
Yeah, there's an opening there, but it shows the windows much better. I thought you guys really needed to see it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There are comments directed to the applicant. Right, the first order of business is to declare this a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act.
So moved.
Thank you, Hayes. Do I have a second?
Robert Tonner, second.
Robert. All right, I will call the roll on this. Okay, that would be Kevin.
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Hayes?
Aye.
Has recused herself, and I will also vote in the affirmative. Okay.
Thank you.
I hereby move that the commission find as fact that the conversion of the existing Mercantile to a Mercantile and Cafe, restoration of parts of the original facade of 39 Broadway in the Rondout Historic District by applicant Anthony Sasso and owner 39 Broadway LLC, if done according to the plans reviewed at this meeting and according to procedures stipulated in section 405-64 of the City of Kingston's Administrative Code, is compatible with the historic character of the building and district for the following reasons: that the proposed work is to take place at the 3-story brick building prominently situated on the corner of Broadway and Beale Street, with storefront windows at either side of the corner, centered main entrance appearing on the 1870 Beers map of Rondout, Kingston, and Wilbur, having been built sometime between 1858 and 1870. That the proposal of the installation of new transom windows in place of the wooden panels currently above the storefront windows 3 new Hinkley Foundry Arm sconces in matte black, 12 inches in diameter, 2 on Broadway and 1 on Abeale Street, and 1 cedar and moss Marie pendant light in matte black, 12 inches in diameter with signage overlay, that this work will cause a material change to the external appearance of the property, that the renovations will not detract from the character of the historic district or the building, that any changes or additions to the plans or work specifically described and outlined in the submitted application will be subject to further review by our commission prior to the work being carried out, and that this commission's approval does not obviate the need for a building permit from the City of Kingston's Building Safety Division or any other required approvals from relevant coordinating agencies. Based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that on the 5th day of November 2020, that this commission grant a preservation notice of action to the above referenced applicant for work as described herein, and in its application to this commission, such notice to be subject to the conditions contained in our foregoing motion. Do I have a second?
Second, Robert Tonner.
Okay.
Thank you, Robert. All right, I'll call the roll. Kevin McAvoy.
Aye.
Aye.
Robert.
Aye.
Hayes.
Aye.
Andrea's recusal, and I also vote in the affirmative. All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
gentlemen. Have a good evening.
You too.
All right. Next would be 38 Main Street / 243 Fair Street. Who's here to address that application? Hello again, Scott. Else?
Good evening, everyone. This is commonly referred to as the Bergevin Building for locals. Also site of my very first office, dating back to 1995. So I'm feeling a little nostalgic tonight. And a great place for pizza if anyone's interested. So the owners and operators of Lola Pizza attempted to install a tent as a result of COVID. It ended very badly after the first windstorm, and quickly erected this temporary structure. We made our rounds before the planning board, have obtained a 1-year approval for this. Also went to HAC, obtained a similar 1-year approval for this temporary structure over the patio, and are seeking the same from this body tonight.
Any commission members have questions about this application for Mr. Dutton?
All right.
Okay, then our first order of business is to declare this a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act.
Mark, you're going to have to lean in.
Oh my, I feel like I'm already on top of it, but okay. Everyone gets a great view of my nose in this one. All right, do I have a motion to declare this a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act?
Hayes Clement, so moved.
Thank you, Hayes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, I'll call the roll. Kevin?
Aye.
Sure.
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Hayes?
Aye.
Andrea is still recused. I vote in the affirmative. Okay. 38. I move that the commission find as fact that the installation of a temporary pergola structure for outside dining at 38 Main Street in the Stockade and Fair Street Historic Districts by applicant and owner Hudson Valley Development LLC, if done according to the plans reviewed at this meeting and according to the procedures stipulated in section 405-64 of Kingston's Administrative Code, is compatible with the historic character of the building and the district for the following reasons. That the proposed work is to take place at the east addition of the three-story press brick building known as the Bergevin Building, prominently situated on the corner of Fair and Main Streets, appearing on the 1899 Sanborn maps of Kingston, having been built sometime between then and 1887, when a smaller structure appeared in its place. The addition having its own entrance and an address of 243 Fair Street. The proposed work will involve installation of a temporary pergola constructed of removable wooden elements and painted white. That this work will cause a material change to the external appearance of the property, that the temporary structure will not detract from the character of the historic district or the building, that any changes or additions to the plans or work specifically described and outlined in the submitted application will be subject to further review by our commission prior to additional work being carried out. That this commission's approval does not obviate the need for a building permit from the City of Kingston's Building Safety Division or other required approvals from coordinating agencies. Based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that on the 5th day of November 2020, this commission grant a preservation notice of action to the above referenced applicant. For the work is described herein and in its application to the commission, such notice to be subject to the conditions contained in the foregoing motion. Do I hear a second?
Hayes
Mark.
Clement, second.
Mark, this is Sue. Would you,
Hi,
could
Sue.
you amend that to me? This is a temporary one-year approval coinciding
Oh.
with the Heritage and the Planning Board's temporary approval.
Right. All right, then I need to so amend my motion to add the stipulation that this approval is for 1 year from the date of approval. Hayes, do you accept or will you second the motion as
I second the motion as amended.
you, Hayes? All right. Any further discussion? Okay, then I am going to call the roll. Kevin?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Hayes?
Aye.
I note Andrea's recusal, and I vote in the affirmative.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next on our agenda is 200 Fair Street. Is someone here to address that application?
Andrew.
Andrew
Hi,
Wright.
Andrew. If you would please describe your plan for the commission.
We're gonna put in a roller disco? No. We're basically taking my office I've had since for a long time, and we've been fixing it up over the years. And I want to put back canopies, which use the brackets which are historically accurate, and railings around the main lane side specifically, so that it goes back to close to what it was back in the late 1800s. The as you notice, we've taken the wrinkled tin canopy off and painted the building, which we came before this commission before. And now we're just trying to take the Maiden Lane elevation and the entry on Fair Street and bring it back to some sort of matching the history of the area.
All right. Do members of the commission have any questions for the applicant?
I better put on my glasses.
Hey, yes,
All right.
Andrea Putz, I have a couple of questions actually. Just wanted to confirm what the material is proposed to be for your railing types. Or is it going to be like a wrought iron or a wood or something like that? Or
No, it'll be a wrought iron. I would love to do what they had back then with these cast iron crazies, but I have already an existing railing on the Fair Street side, which has worked well. So I'm going to match that 42 inches high around the walk down office and entrance on Maiden Lane.
And the other question I have for you too is on the canopies. Are you proposing those be made of wood or an alternate material? Or
actually, I have one of my friends in the city. We're going to use, to get that kind of curve, I have to use some sort of laminate of either Ipe or mahogany so it won't fall apart.
Mhm.
And then I sent you sample photos of what I wanted to do. I cannot recreate what was in 1875 because those portraits just, I got gas meters and reality in the way. So we were going to create that beautiful curved thin bracket on both entrances because my tenants have been very patient that they have to open the door in the weather without a canopy. And so that's really the essence of it. And then the top part will be the same material with a very simple roof. I'm going to probably utilize the drains I have to take the water off and just to make it fit in with what's becoming the Fair Street Historical District.
very good.
Questions, Hayes?
Where did you find the brackets, Andrew?
Well, I went, from the original drawings we submitted, that lithograph had a wonderful swale. So I looked at the Pearson house, and then I went down on Wall Street. I'm doing a house right now at 114 Wall, across the street from Peter B's Deli. And across from it was the same brackets, which I think I might have sent. I'm looking at my submission. Yes, I found a house on Wall Street down there around, I'll say 112, something like that, maybe 113, which had that beautiful curved nano curve bracket, and it's thin and elegant. Originally, our mill worker wanted to put these heavy brackets, but I absolutely adore that light, strong, which means I have to use a stronger material, a bracket which is, has edge sides that'll hold the weight. We're not doing an enormous canopy. We're going to come out 3 feet, enough to make it work. And on the Maiden Lane side, the trick is I have to kind of compete with a fire escape. And I did the research. I really can't take that off. So the Fair Street side will be a beautiful standalone canopy, as you see in our submission. On the Wall Street property, I don't know who owns that, but on the Maiden Lane side, I will integrate it within the existing fire escape so that it gives all the same impression and does not leak.
So they were custom milled, though.
Yes.
Looks great. We would. I think Sue and Julie should have the name of that, that contractor just on file, maybe in case somebody else needs to fabricate these.
Scott Batriel. I've worked with him for 40 years.
Very well done.
Can you
The second
email
thing is not a question, but just a comment. I think the color scheme looks fantastic, even better than when you presented it.
Andrew, would you just email that contact name and information to Julie and I, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Looks great.
I'd
Looks,
love to come up here.
color looks terrific.
Thank you very
Any
much.
other comments or questions for Mr. Wright? Okay, then I think our next order of business is to declare this a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. I'll entertain a motion.
Hayes Clement, so moved.
Hayes, do I have a second?
Andrea Pute, second.
Ah, well done.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right, I'll call the roll. Kevin?
Aye.
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Hayes?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Okay. I hereby move that the commission find as fact that the proposed canopies and railings at 200 Fair Street in the Fair Street Historic District by applicant Wright Architects PLLC and owner Aaron Maiden LLC, if done according to the plans reviewed at this meeting and according to the procedures stipulated in section 405-64 of Kingston's Administrative Code, is compatible with the historic character of the building and the district for the following reasons. That the proposed work is to take place at the 2.5-story brick building with mansard roof located on the northeast corner of Fair Street and Maiden Lane, with its facade facing west, appearing on the 1870 Beers map of Rondout, Kingston, and Wilbur, not appearing on the 1858 map of Ulster County by J.H. French, having therefore been built sometime between 1858 and 1870. That the proposed work will involve installation of 2 canopies of Second Empire style installed over the entrances on Fair Street and Maiden Lane, and the installation of wrought iron railings around the perimeter of the entrances. That this work will cause a material change to the external appearance of the property, that the canopies and railings will not detract from the character of the historic district or the building, that any changes or additions to the plans or work specifically described and outlined in the submitted application will be subject to further review by our commission prior to such work being carried out. That this commission's approval does not obviate the need for a building permit from the City of Kingston's Building Safety Division or any other required approvals from relevant coordinating agencies. Based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that on the 5th day of November 2020, this commission grant a preservation notice of action to the above referenced applicant for the work as described herein, and in its application to this commission, such notice to be subject to the conditions contained in the foregoing motion. Do I have a second?
Hayes Clement, second.
You, Hayes. I will call the roll. Kevin McAvoy.
Aye.
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Hayes?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
I also vote in the affirmative.
Good.
Thank you, Andrew, for your work on this. Have a great night.
Thanks, Andrew.
Last application, 275 Fair Street. Oh. I couldn't hear you.
Hi, everyone. It's Tyson from Timely Signs. Can you hear me?
Now I can, Tyson. Thank you kindly. If you'd please describe the project for the commission.
Yes, we're proposing some very minimal window lettering as shown in the packet for the 2 front windows and the front door, along with moving the existing hanging arm bracket up to put a hanging sign that will meet the 96-inch to the sidewalk code in those renderings. But I'm also looking to see, speaking with the landlord and the business owner, they're looking to try to add painting I'm not sure if you can see this is the actual facade here. They're looking to paint these 3 panels right here. Whoops, sorry, these 3 panels, Van Dusen blue. There's actually peeling paint on it's actually glass there. They're looking to paint those 3 areas and the 2 lower areas as well, shown down here, to match what was already done at their current location, which they're adding to. As you can see, they have the blue paint, the same blue there, as well as down here and here. They're looking to do the same thing at their other location. The owner is aware that they have to put City of Kingston's addition the overhanging sign. And actually, Andrew is here as well if you have any questions for him.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew.
Tyson, do you have that paint color?
Yes, it's Van Dusen blue.
Company, Tyson?
It's an HC 156 Benjamin Moore.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Andrew on this new addition to the application? All right. Congratulations on the expansion. Is there anything else you'd like us to know?
I actually do have one question, Mark, sorry. Andrew and/or Tyson, could you guys clarify a little bit more of like what's happening above where you guys are painting? You said it was a glass?
Yeah, Andrew, if you want to.
Sure. Yeah, it's painted now and peeling off, and we're just proposing to clean it off and paint it. It's some old, 2 of the 3 panels have some wavy, you guys I'm sure know more than I do, but it's some sort of wavy old shop front glass, but it's not on the inside, it's all walled off. So I would have loved to have opened it, but there's no way.
Okay.
So that paint would actually be continuing to cover what is not really what you really don't want to see behind that glass.
And the glass is only on 2 of the 3 panels because there's an old vent on the left-hand panel, so it's not even consistent. Yeah, so this will be a cleanup.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the applicant or for?
I think it looks great.
All right, then. I think our first order of business is to declare this type 2 action under the Review Act.
Hayes Clement, so moved.
I have a second.
Second.
Peter, thank you for the second on that. I'll call the roll. Kevin?
Aye.
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Hayes?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
I also vote in the affirmative.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. First step. Now we get to move on to the next question. Oh, all right. Hang on just a moment for me.
Who did the motions for that one?
Hayes made the motion and Peter made the second.
Thank you.
I move that the commission find its fact that the proposed signage at 275 Fair Street in the Stockade Historic District by the applicant Timely Signs of Kingston and owner of Opera House LLC and repainting of the facade, if done according to the plans reviewed at this meeting and according to procedures stipulated in section 405-64 of the City of Kingston's Administrative Code is compatible with the historic character of the building and the district for the following reasons. That the proposed signage will involve 2 window graphics with logo and address in white HP vinyl, both 28 inches wide by 5 3/8 inches high, and 1 double-sided hanging sign, 26 by 26 by 3/4 inch thick PVC exterior grade with digitally printed high-performance graphics and a matte over laminate mounted to the existing hanging bracket, which will be relocated above the overhang to accommodate the minimum 96-inch clearance. And the repainting in Van Dusen blue, as presented at our hearing, that this work will cause a material change to the external appearance of the property, that the signage will not detract from the character of the historic district or the building, that any changes or additions to the signage or facade specifically described and outlined in the submitted application and as presented to us this evening will be subject to further review by our commission prior to the work being carried out. The commission's approval does not obviate the need for a building permit from the City of Kingston's Building Safety Division or any other required approvals from relevant coordinating agencies. Based on the preceding findings of fact, on the 5th day of November 2020, this commission grant a preservation notice of action to the above referenced applicant for the work as described herein, and in its application to the commission, such notice to be subject to the conditions contained in our foregoing motion, and also condition upon the applicant obtaining insurance, naming the city as an additional insured in respect to the overhang pursuant to section 358-9 of the City of Kingston's Administrative Code regarding projections and obstructions. Do I have a second?
Hayes Clement, second.
Hayes. All right, I'll call the roll. Kevin?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Hayes?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
I also vote in favor.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Have a nice evening.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Now. All right, on to other business. First is, I love this title, the Livestock Amendment, otherwise known as the Chicken Law. Has everyone had is everyone familiar with this new bit of legislation from the city?
Mm-hmm.
Did this one also come before HAC?
I am not familiar with it, but yeah, until
Okay.
until I saw this earlier.
This does not have to go before the Heritage. This is a zoning amendment, and so by code, this is going to the local planning board, the Landmarks Commission, and the Ulster County Planning Board. And the section of the code that's being referenced is a section that deals with allowing farms, truck gardens, and greenhouses, nurseries, and arboretums on lots having an area of 5 acres, of at least 5 acres. And the only portion of this section that is impacted is the section that deals with the farm buildings devoted or intended for the housing of livestock, horses, rabbits, hares, guinea pigs, ducks, geese, live poultry, or fowl, and blah, blah, blah. And that's to be removed, okay, from that section and incorporated into the charter. And I see Dan Gartenstein is on. These are only allowed right now in all of the residential zones with the exception of R6. So the only districts that are really affected by this are the West Chestnut Street Historic District and the Fair Street Historic District. Both the Stockade and the Rondout Historic District have other underlying zoning, so they're not affected by this change. And there are realistically no 5-acre lots in either of those districts. And Dan has his finger up.
I see your finger. What would you like to tell us? You may want to get in frame there.
First, Sue mentioned that it would be put in the charter. It's actually not going to be put in the charter. The regulation and restrictions with regard to pet chickens in the city of Kingston are currently under review, and the request is that the language that is currently erroneously placed in the zoning code get moved into the current section that deals with the control of and regulation of animals and pets in general, recognizing the fact that this is not a zoning issue, this is an animal control issue, and that the zoning enforcement officer is now put in the position to enforce this section of the code, which is fairly unenforceable, has raised problems given the proliferation of poultry as pets in the city of Kingston. I see Hayes is yawning.
I appreciated the alliteration there.
I was nodding. I think it's it's one of these easy things to joke about, but it's a problem if you live next to them.
And it is an issue all over the city. And while technically under the provisions of the zoning code, it currently only applies to certain neighborhoods, and the code speaks about the requirement for significant setbacks. There are no properties within the city of Kingston that have those setbacks. So in essence, the language that's in the code now bans pet chickens completely, and it has never been enforced that way. So we're trying to, for want of a better term, rein in the chickens and put them in a section of the code where it actually can be enforced citywide.
We don't currently have an animal control officer, do we?
At this point, we have a contract with the ASPCA to address dogs, and they sometimes address cats. The issue of who is ultimately going to enforce this is something that's going to have to be addressed operationally and administratively by the mayor. The first step is creating an enforceable ordinance, which we do not have at this point because it is located in the wrong section of the code and dates back to 1963 when the issues were very different.
But this is going to make it more easy to enforce, and whether building safety or somebody else enforces it, it's generally going to make it easier to enforce.
Well, it's going to make it possible to enforce. Easier would imply that it's enforceable at all now.
Okay, possible to enforce.
Yes.
I'm all for that.
And so we are giving our comments to the planning board on this, am I following?
No, we are giving you, okay, the council is being asked to initially move the section out of the zoning code and put it in the animal control code. That would technically constitute a change to the zoning law, and any change to the zoning law requires a referral to the planning board, the county planning board, and the HLPC. So this is the first step to start implementing substantive changes to the regulation of the animals in the city. It still has to go back to the council. Just for clarification with regard to this item on the agenda and the next item on the agenda, much like we've done in the past, we have sent the item to you in advance of the formal referral from the Common Council. The sooner your comments get back to the council, the sooner they can start deliberating. Technically, it hasn't been referred to you yet. That will happen next week, but if the board tonight decides that you support this and you're willing just to send a letter to that effect to the council now, that certainly will move the process forward.
I move that we submit to the Common Council a letter endorsing this action.
I need to ask one more question of Dan. I don't really see how this impacts our reviews unless we have a wave of chicken hoops come through. Am I following this correctly?
Well, anytime the zoning law is changed, you are entitled to make a recommendation. Whether or not it impacts your, jurisdiction or not, is really not the issue. I mean,
right.
In order for somebody to have a chicken in their backyard, they don't need to come to the HLPC to get a preservation notice of action. So in that regard, no.
If they wish to put up an ornate chicken, who knows? All right. I will second Hayes' motion. And if there is no further discussion, I will call the roll.
I have one question. Dan,
Hayes
I
made
think
a
one.
motion. Was there a second?
I am the second.
I believe
Okay.
Kevin had a question though.
All right.
Yeah,
Kevin, go ahead. Come ahead.
Are you voting or should I ask the question?
I'd ask you had a question, let's address it.
Yeah. 151 pertains, I think, mostly to dogs, as far as I can tell. Maybe cats are in there too, I don't know, but mostly dogs.
It's broken down,
is
I believe,
151 going to be amended?
I don't have the statute in front of me. My recollection is it is broken down into two subsections. I believe A is dogs and B is all other animals.
All
So
other animals.
this would be included in the second section of under other animals.
And would that make chickens illegal?
No.
It would still be up to the council to determine what regulations they believe are appropriate. At this point, the suggestion is merely to take the language out of the code that currently sets parameters. Has setback requirements, also has requirements with regard to them being confined and not wandering around the neighborhood. And moving that into the animal control section. Whether the council ultimately wishes to require permits or chicken licenses, is up to them. But again, it's not a zoning issue.
Right.
And it never should have been in the zoning code in the first place.
Yeah, but just as a backstory, the reason I asked the question was that one of the council members, who I believe started keeping chickens during COVID, contacted me, and I've been attending these urban agriculture meetings that are part of Live Well Kingston on behalf of Kingston Land Trust. And she asked me to bring this up over there. And that's a new thing called Grow Well Kingston. It's a subgroup of Live Well Kingston. They took no action at all on this. They're actually Grow Well Kingston, and they're more interested in the reviewing at a future date the 5-acre restriction in terms of people growing stuff on their property. But they took no action or didn't really express too much interest in chickens. So that's the end of my story on that. But one further thing, this came up at the CAC before my tenure, and you could talk to Julie Noble about it, but it went on. There were like meeting after meeting about chickens. No resolution was ever came of any of it. So,
All right. So this is not the first time it's come forward. I'm going to reiterate your motion. I will continue with my second. If there are no further comments, I'll call the roll. Kevin?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Hayes?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye, and Sue, you forgot a partridge in a pear tree, by the way.
Well, I was going to say nothing's been done because everybody's chicken now. But anyway.
Chicken is nothing but a boy.
I'm going to get just, I vote in favor, and now I'm going to go put my head in the sand.
Okay.
All right. Next on the, next up is another zoning amendment referral on a temporary use variance. Dan, would you like to describe that, or?
Yeah, sure. Again, technically, this has not been referred to you yet. It's on the council agenda for Tuesday to issue the formal referral. We sent it to you in advance just to try to expedite the process. Requests have been made for temporary variances by property owners who have been adversely impacted by conditions caused by the state of emergency. In particular, we've had a number of businesses who have indicated that they cannot rent their street level spaces for mostly for restaurant use given COVID, and that they have not been able to secure tenants, and they are suffering economic hardships based upon limitations that are put on their use by the zoning code. The suggestion was made that the ZBA could grant temporary variances for limited periods to allow uses under certain conditions if proof can be submitted that there's an economic hardship that is directly caused by by conditions related to a state of emergency, and they would still need to review and evaluate the proposed use to determine that the use is appropriate for the space under the circumstances. Currently, the ZBA does not have that authority. They can only grant permanent variances that would run with the land. And when these applications have been either presented to them or suggested, the ZBA has had to respond that they do not have the jurisdiction to do that. This would amend the zoning code to give the ZBA that additional authority. And once again, it would be an amendment to the zoning code. So a referral would need to be made to this body, to County Planning Department and the Kingston Planning Department. The statute would be very clear, or the legislation would be very clear, that the property owner could not use the temporary variance or expenses associated with the temporary conversion to justify a permanent variance at the conclusion of the emergency. So this is a specific proposal that is tied to the existence of a state of emergency. We did not want to specifically identify the emergency as the current global pandemic, because it could be any state of emergency that would cause similar conditions that would make it impossible or extremely difficult for a property owner to utilize their space as is set forth in the code.
And are the variances to recite what triggers the end? Because once they've put in.
Say it again.
My concern here is that once it's been temporarily converted, people will keep attempting to renew a temporary use well after the
Did you receive, Mark, did you receive the proposed legislation?
I did. I'm trying to figure out where exactly, how one calculates the end point.
Okay, so the temporary variance would be for a period of 1 year. It could be extended for additional 1 year periods if the emergency that led to the variance remains in place. So if the declared state of emergency, whether it's a federal emergency, state emergency, or local emergency, is still in place at the conclusion of the year, they can apply for another 1 year extension. The legislation will also specifically provide that, again, the temporary variance cannot be used as the basis to secure a permanent variance at the conclusion of the temporary period.
Okay.
Dan, I have a question, Dan. Julie here.
Yeah.
So for 38 Main, which we just did, you know, Scott's Bergevin application,
Yeah.
we kind of applied that already. Can we do that in advance before it's enacted?
What do you mean?
Well, we gave him the approval and we based it on that temporary variance.
It's not a use variance.
Well, Scott's is different. Scott was not a variance. Yeah, because that use is a legal use. He's only looking to put the canopy or pergola structure up on a temporary basis. They're looking to take that down once the COVID pandemic is over with.
Right. But as an example, if that property owner could demonstrate to the ZBA that they needed a variance based upon business that was lost as a result of the pandemic, they could apply to the ZBA, and if they could establish by competent documentary proof that they suffered an economic hardship tied to the pandemic, and that they meet the other criteria that are outlined in the code, and after a public hearing, they demonstrate to the ZBA that their proposed use is appropriate and, you know, in keeping with the neighborhood, they could grant them a temporary variance for a 1-year period, and that 1-year period could be extended if the emergency continued. Now, hopefully, we're never in this situation yet.
But that language then from the minutes that I just wrote for that application.
Well, no, because that was not a use. This is dealing with a use. That use is allowed.
Yeah.
Where 38 Main is, that use was allowed. So this is something totally different. This is where the use wouldn't be is not allowed.
Right.
Okay, I misunderstood. I thought that's what you meant when you added that to the findings.
No.
No.
Hey.
Hayes, you have a question or
Yeah,
comment?
Dan, I mean, all these legislative changes stem from practical requests. What kind of requests are driving this? Is it to subdivide houses? What is it?
It's mostly well, we've had one specific request that was brought to the ZBA to use the ground floor of a building on Fair Street for a purpose other than a restaurant, that they wanted to lease it for residential purposes because they could not secure a restaurant tenant, and they wanted to be able to market it to other individuals who would not be opening a business. The ZBA was presented with this application and had to recognize that they don't have the jurisdiction to do this. So for argument's sake, if there's a storefront in Uptown Kingston and the owner of the building cannot rent the space after, reasonable diligent efforts that would have to be shown to the ZBA, and someone comes forward and, they want to live there and they can get a residential tenant for the first floor of the building, limited to a 1-year lease, and they could establish to the ZBA that this is an appropriate use and that it wouldn't be intrusive to the neighborhood, the ZBA would have the authority to grant that variance.
But this is going to apply citywide, not just to certain landmark neighborhoods or anything.
Correct. Citywide.
I have an issue with this, and I just have a fear that, yes, it's quote unquote temporary variance, but we're never going to be able to reverse it once somebody has one.
Also, if a business move or if a material change is done to the inside of a building to create, say, a restaurant to an apartment, what would entice someone to redo that work to create a restaurant again?
Because at the conclusion of the year, they're not allowed to have the residents there anymore, and they cannot use the conversion costs to support their request for a permanent variance. Basically, they would be investing in order to allow them to fill the space for the limited period of time. And the legislation, or the proposed legislation, clearly states that it cannot be used. There's no estoppel argument. It cannot be used as a basis for a more permanent variance at the conclusion of the emergency.
Even if they can say, well, it's going to be, but Dan, what if they can say, well, it's going to be a financial hardship at that point to go back to what it was supposed to be?
Because the legislation says that the financial hardship has to be established by documentary evidence, and that documentary evidence cannot include expenses associated with the temporary use.
So there's a specific exclusion to the standard dollars and cents rule.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Do any other municipalities have experience with anything like this, or are we kind of pioneers here?
I believe that municipalities all across the state are attempting to implement emergency measures to address situations that have never arisen before. I think it also needs to be made clear to the board that currently, under the executive law, the mayor has the authority to do this without any review by the ZBA or any review by any administrative agency. There are very broad powers under the executive law. What this would do is it would create a process whereby a board would review the application according to a specific standard, as opposed to the chief executive having unfettered discretion under the executive law.
But unfettered discretion is to grant a temporary variance for 1 year or permanently?
The mayor has the chief executive has the authority to, very broad authority to permit uses that are not set forth in the zoning code. And it goes back to what Julie was talking about with the sidewalk cafes and with accommodations that are being made as the emergency develops. So for argument's sake, under the executive law, the mayor could say to a property owner, you have permission to use this in a manner that is not covered in the executive law because it's necessary under the state of emergency. Okay.
Under the zoning code, right? Not the executive law.
No. The mayor's authority is under the executive law.
Right, but they would be exempted from the normal limitations of the zoning code.
Of the zoning law. And
or our
what this would do,
regulations, for example.
what this would do is it would set up a process whereby instead of the executive having the only authority to do that, the zoning board of appeals could also do that based on clear standards. So a property owner would have the option of trying to establish an emergency plea to the chief executive, or to go to the ZBA with documentary proof of a hardship caused by the emergency and convince the ZBA based on evidence that this variance should be granted for that limited period of time.
So, as a commission, how do we wish to comment on this sort of interesting emergency authority? Now, it's
Well, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong. Well, you have two options this evening. You can make your comment this evening, and you can endorse it. You can recommend modifications to it, or you can simply table it because it has not been officially referred to you, and you can consider it at your next meeting.
Yeah. The only drawback to tabling it would be possibly extending the process, and given that it is a proposed emergency measure, there's a reason to move it more expeditiously, but I'm not sure that it would really have a significant impact if you just punted it to next month. That's your call. The explanation and the rationale is not going to change between now and December.
But Dan, can they go ahead and move on it without our official comment or lack of comment, or?
They cannot move on this without your comment before the December meeting.
Which would be after your December meeting.
which would be after your
There's a
December.
time clock once they make the formal.
Yeah. I mean, the only real issue is whether or not the council the extent to which the council is going to be able to deliberate and consider the remarks that this board is making and that the county is making. I can tell you that the county planning board will not be taking this up until until their December meeting. I believe that the city planning board will probably have it on their agenda in November. But they will have 30 days to comment as well. So, realistically, we're not looking at action before January anyway.
Well, what do folks think? Do we want to comment now? Do we want to let this ruminate for a while? It's a more complicated proposal than the chicken law.
I'm definitely not in favor of issuing a supportive comment about it now. I am willing to just table it for more deliberation.
I would also like to think about this a little bit more too.
Yeah, I'm following that.
Language?
I do.
Yes.
Okay, and everyone knows where to get a hold of me if there are any questions.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I would urge if there are questions between now and next month when you vote that, you send me an email, you reach out with those questions beforehand, rather than us, attempting to hash it out in this format.
Sounds great.
Okay. Do we need a formal motion to table, Susan?
Yes.
No, because you haven't received it yet.
You don't want them to make a motion just to table it, move it to the next meeting? I mean, I don't know. We could.
I don't believe you need to, because once the referral comes in, it has to be put on the agenda. Technically, that's when it's new business. But, whatever you want to do, Sue, it doesn't really matter.
Getting a sense of the meeting that we would want to hang on to this one and review it again more formally next month. And
are there any comments or questions from Kevin or Robert or Andrea?
Time.
No, I'm
No,
good.
not at this time.
Yeah,
Okay.
none from me.
Right. I'm gonna let this one slide as we await our formal notice. Sue, I would ask that you draft a letter on the livestock amendment, and make sure that
That
we
was the
don't.
motion. For the livestock one, we already did that motion.
Yes, we did. And so, but my point here was that we deliver it after it's formally given to us. I think it might be attacked as invalid if we are premature.
Okay, I got you. All right.
Say that again, Mark?
That we not deliver a letter until we actually receive a referral.
Yeah, that doesn't really, they will consider your
Does it
letter.
not matter?
Yeah, they're aware of the fact that the referrals go out as soon as the legislation is available, and whatever you respond will be considered during their deliberation whenever it's received, as long as it's received before the 30-day limit. So you can send it tomorrow, you can send it 2 weeks from now.
Okay, then Sue, I rescind that worry. Whenever you've got it, it's fine.
It'll be done tomorrow. Get it off my plate.
Good. That sounds wonderful then, as long as it's not going to cause a complication and have it bounce back. All right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
No,
Not yet. Not yet.
What?
Not
There's
yet.
more?
The next meeting.
Okay. I see it on number 11 here, combining HLPC and HAC meetings in future. So did everyone, I thought it moved along fairly well. I mean, there is some duplication of effort, but how do folks feel that one went? Hayes?
I thought it was great in terms of, responsiveness to applicants. I thought it was terrific. So I think what Sue and Julie are talking about is just combining them in months when they coincide in the same week, right?
correct.
So I think it's a good step. I think we ought to do more of that, but this is a good start.
Which is next month.
Right, so your December 3rd meeting would be a joint meeting with the HAC. Okay, and then what we will do when we prepare the calendars for next year, when we see that happening, we'll just automatically join them together on the Thursday night meeting. Okay?
That's it, yeah. All right,
Okay.
I think we have a sense of the meeting supporting that. Have you received a notice regarding the virtual, there's going to be a virtual historic preservation conference?
Yes, I received that today.
I think we should look into that. I don't know what the costs exactly are going to be, but I need to say that that's been they've given excellent training through the years. And for all commissioners, take a look at that. Do you know if it got distributed to all commissioners, Julie?
Mark, I got it today and I looked at it. I meant to bring it up, so thank you for that. I will apply for everybody for a scholarship. It mentions scholarships in it. So that's what I'm gonna do. I meant to do that already, just didn't do it yet. So I'll do it for everybody on this commission.
Thank you for that. And yeah, if you want to, could you submit or distribute? I'm trying to remember whether it had proposed workshops and just the general structure.
Yeah.
I think we could.
Yes, it does.
I'll
It's
distribute it to you guys.
3 days or 2.5 days.
Sounds great. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved, Peter. I will entertain a second.
Second, Hayes.
Well done, Hayes. I will call the roll. Kevin.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Robert.
Aye.
Hayes.
Aye.
Andrea.
A resounding aye.
And I hear the echo right off. Yeah, absolutely, me too.
Good night.
Have a great
Hey, good night, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.